Breaking news as America's former favorite mayor and star of Borat 2, Rudy Giuliani, will not testify in the defamation trial brought by former Georgia election workers. A Giuliani spokesperson confirmed to CNN closing arguments in the trial are set to begin today.
The decision to skip testifying follows testimony by Georgia election workers Ruby Freeman and her daughter Shay Moss, spanning 2 days. The pair recounted the emotional toll and damage to their reputations caused by false statements spread by Giuliani. Freeman and Moss are now seeking millions of dollars in damages, urging an 8-person jury in Washington, D.C. to hold the former mayor accountable for the distress they claim to have endured.
This is a shift for Giuliani, who previously claimed he would stand behind his truth at the trial. Here he is earlier this week.
I was proven to be telling the truth, and they were proven to be liars. Once again, that will happen. When I testify, you'll get the whole story, and it will be definitively clear that what I said was true, and that whatever happened to them, which is, it's unfortunate if other people overreacted, but everything I said about them is true.
ABC News broke down the ongoing court battle. Let's tune into their coverage.
This morning, Rudy Giuliani is back in court, face to face with the 2 Georgia election workers whose lives were nearly ruined by his repeated falsehoods and conspiracy theories about them after the 2020 election. Giuliani telling me after court yesterday he stands by all of it.
Do you regret what you did to Ruby Freeman?
Of course I don't regret it. I told the truth. They were engaged in changing votes.
There's no proof of that.
Oh, you're damn right there is. Stay tuned.
Ruby Freeman and her daughter Wandrea Shay Moss served as election workers in Georgia in 2020. But when Donald Trump claimed baselessly that the vote count was rigged, Giuliani accused them of bringing in suitcases stuffed with fake Biden votes and other skullduggery.
I really felt that someone would tell him, like, no, sir, you don't know what you're talking about.
All right, so the accusations, just to be clear, were about the 2 election workers filling suitcases filled with illegal ballots. It was all part of the election was stolen narrative that was being pushed by Giuliani and Donald Trump, and in some ways, well, still is being pushed. You heard Giuliani there say that he doesn't regret saying any of that. He also accused them of passing USB drives back and forth, like, quote, like they were vials of heroin or cocaine. This wasn't just a superficial passing mention of them. Their particular names were really core to the election denial claims that were being made, and they were very frequently cited on social media and beyond. False statements about Moss and Freeman between November of 2021 and May of 2023 numbered more than 710,000 online, and it continued on between May and August of 2023. There were another over 300,000 mentions. They got so much attention that they had to move houses as a consequence of the harassment that they were facing. So now there's this question about whether Rudy Giuliani was going to take the stand. It wouldn't surprise me if I were his counsel to withdraw that attention if he's still insisting that his statements are true.
Well, and the issue is he's actually changed his opinion on that matter a couple times. So we played 2 clips there. One where he was telling from a while ago where he told a reporter that no, what they said is what I said about them is true, and stay tuned, I'll present the evidence. And then him just recently saying that, again, calling them liars. In between that, in July, he conceded that he changed the strategy. He said, they're correct. What I said about them was untrue, but what I said was protected First Amendment speech. And now, because he already lost this case, they're arguing over the damages. And his attorney, who did testify, said that we anticipate that there will be damages. This was damaging, but the amount being asked is way too high. So now he's again saying, well, okay, they're liars. But he already, he's changed the strategy way too many times. And there's been no corroboration of the claims he made against them. At some point I do start to take I discount, obviously, the free speech argument. Defamation is an exception to free speech. You can't engage in defamatory or libelous conduct toward people. I don't necessarily know that you should be held responsible for every nasty thing someone does to someone else based on your speech, even if your speech is wrong. But yes, what these people suffered is very bad, and they've already, it's they won the case, and Giuliani did at one point concede that what he said was wrong, and his attorney has conceded they deserve some kind of compensation for it. So it seems fairly open shut at this point. I don't know what else to say.
Yeah, I mean, so there's a question about who is going to be called to attest to the reputational damage that's being alleged here, and whether or not also the two election workers are going to be called to, or whether Giuliani's counsel rather has the right to cross-examine the election workers about the nature of the damages that they're claiming and the reputational harm that they've experienced. So that will continue to play out. But yeah, I can't imagine a world in which Giuliani still insisting that he was right to smear them is going to help him be persuasive to lowering damages against him. I mean, he's basically continuing the libelous activity that he was convicted of already.
If you make defamatory statements against people who aren't public people, you can be held accountable for the bad things that happen to them. This is something people on the right believed about correctly about the Nick Sandman, the kid at the center of the Covington stuff that he successfully. I mean, they settled. It didn't get litigated in court, but he settled with media organizations for the claims they made. This has happened to a number of canceled individuals in the past. So these were not people in the fray of these election workers were not other major political figures in which we gave greater license for exaggeration and for if you're part of the battle of public ideas, we afford greater free speech protections to those activities. You can't just kind of accuse random people of very specific accusations that are not founded and then not suffer the consequences of paying them out.
This stuff seems so easy. I mean, as you're doing these damages calculations, it would be one thing if, let's say, someone on your team gives you false information and you repeat it a bunch of times in the course of a week or so. Eventually it gets back to you that it wasn't true. You just stop saying it. At that point, I can imagine a much smaller damage award and, frankly, much less damage to the two individuals involved here. But we're living in a very different world where, with no evidence, and frankly with no reason to believe it's true, these kind of statements were made for months and years up until, to present, frankly, because we just heard Giuliani is still saying these kinds of things. And then not just the suitcases of ballots accusation, but some of the smears that veer into the personal, and some people have argued racial, where he compared them to drug dealers passing vials of cocaine and heroin back and forth. It just seems not just unnecessary, but completely beneath the office of the presidency and the president's counsel. It is curious why members of Trump's team seem unable to keep their noses clean about these kind of own goals, unforced errors.
I mean, I don't know how MAGA people feel about this, but I would think maybe their opinion of Rudy Giuliani should have soured over the last couple of years, as he has, I would argue, given very bad legal advice to Donald Trump, has led him down some bad pathways, including involving the very first impeachment over the alleged quid pro quo of trying to get the Ukrainian declaration about the judge, that whole thing. That was a Giuliani scheme. It emerged that was an idea he came up with that was what created the whole issue in the first place. He gave Trump bad advice about the 2020. I don't know. I know maybe he's a beloved figure for certain very conservative people or people who enjoyed the 90s in New York City, but he has not had a great influence on America's former president.
Yeah, I miss drag Giuliani, not this current iteration.
Oh, yes. We've all seen that video.
All right. More Rising for you right after this.